Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Monday of Beneath the Surface. I'm super happy to be here with you. We're going to talk about you are repeating this story of your parents. Yes, you are. And why does this matter? Why is this important? How is this going to help you or not with anything that you're going through? Maybe it's something that you're going through in your relationship, in your job, in your career, self-doubt, anything that is stopping you or anything that feels that you don't know how to deal with. It could be something very subtle, and those subtle things are the most important ones. Those are the ones that we really care about when we're talking about all of those emotions through DNA that were transfer to you through generations. And so before we go there, I want to say I am here always live on Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Instagram, but also on YouTube. So I'm looking at both cameras and we're always talking about this type of subjects. Also, my videos come out on Thursday, so you see me twice a week on YouTube. This recording gets recorded and saved in YouTube, but not on Instagram. So you won't see this on my stories. You will only see it on YouTube. Now, a lot of people, when I talk about this, or when they hear this, I'm not the only one talking about this, but one thing before we go on this subject is through epigenetics, which is a fairly new discovery in science, we understand that a lot of cells get formed and capture information based on the emotions that a human being lives, and that information is transferred through DNA to the next generations. I'm, of course, simplifying this very, very, very much. There is a lot involved in here, but basically what comes up to be a new discovery that we always knew, but didn't have science to prove it, is that DNA not only is going to transfer genes in terms of illnesses or in terms of the type of genes that take you to different personality traits, like things that you're going to like or inclinations, tendencies that you're going to have. Not only physically and biologically, and of course, the way you look and all that, but also emotionally. And this is the important part, right? Because through this science, we discovered that an emotion triggers our nervous system and is memorized, it's captured in the body. And that memory, remember when I used to say emotions are time travelers? Well, this is exactly how we knew it, because your body remembers. And we might not remember in our cognition what happened when we were 2 years old, or of course, we won't remember what happened to our mother or our grandmother before we were born, but our body knows it because it's registered and impacting the DNA, which is where all of our information goes. So neuroscience and epigenetics are powerful places where we can back up this conversation today. And there's a lot of experiments. I've loved doing curation of documents where I put all the experiments and research and big research. How do I call this? Research papers that have been done in the UK, that have been done in the United States. But the most important part about this research papers is that they've extended for years. So we're talking about 20 years, 30 years. And also the other important part about this is because time matters in this conversation a lot. Why time matters a lot? Because, oh, hold on a second. Okay, sorry. Why time matters a lot? Because when they're doing this experiment, in order to really understand that the information and the DNA of your brain, it's going and it's really transferring through generations. We really need to do the studies through years. And that's what we were in a way missing before. I mean, now we're able to have the technology to see inside our brains. But before, we needed the time to really back up this. For example, there is an experiment and a test that they did on this one's a very famous one that they did on rats. And the rats provenly had a reaction that was memorized through their core DNA through 8 years. That's why epigenetics would say that it takes 8 years of generations if you don't do anything, right, to get rid of or to diminish a belief system based on how your body reacts to something. So, for example, the first generation of these rats were electrocuted, and then they would smell this beautiful smell that they loved. And so this feeling of suffering and pain was triggered and engaged with this smell and the sense of something that rats really love. I think it's like orange something. And throughout the years, second generation of rats, when they smell the orange smell, they would feel the electrocution and they would react that same way negatively. And then the third generation would do the same. But the third generation wasn't really electrocuted anymore. It was just the smell. And the fourth generation wasn't really electrocuted anymore. It was just the smell, and so on. And even the fifth and the sixth generation was still feeling the consequences of the electrocution, even though it was only 6 generations back that really felt the electrocution. So that speaks a lot about, the processes in our life that we don't get to understand how to process them, most of the time because we're unconscious of it or because we think it doesn't have strong consequences. Then those get recorded in our DNA and then get transferred to our next generation. And so this is something important because a lot of times we don't understand how these can actually show up in our life. So what we actually do is we say, no, I'm not as my parents are doctors. I'm not a doctor. My parents, they lived a life after war, or they lived a life in another country, or they did this or did that. I'm very different, right? I do things, differently. I'm not necessarily the same in the same situation. And here is where I want to invite you to look at it, because it's really powerful and it's going to be a light in the wall in that dark room all the time, that it's going to help you understand that as we are alive, we always have the next option to process that which our parents weren't able to process. So we're talking here about emotions and how do we get to those emotions. So I want to simplify it, not to say that this is an easy work, but to say that it is very easy to access it, okay? So, for example, when you are going through any situation, right? When you're going through a situation of, wow, like, why does these words that somebody told me, I can't stop thinking about them. And you might not even recognize that they're bothering you. You might not recognize that they offended you or that you feel shame about. Like, you maybe don't recognize any of these feelings at the beginning, but you might just recognize that your mind intuitively wants to repeat them a lot. So you wake up and you're thinking about that. So you keep going through the day and the thought comes in. And so you keep doing this or that, and the thought comes in. And the thought might be, a reiteration of the same thing that they said to you that you didn't like, right? For example, let's say that they say, yeah, but that was a really good job, and I would be scared to let it go. Let's say that was just a phrase. That was a really good job. I would be scared to let it go. And then you're asking yourself, well, am I really scared of letting it go? You hear the phrase again and again. Just the fact that you're hearing whatever it is that your mind is trying to be attached to, that means your mind, it's taking you to that place, right? So think about your mind as the one thing, your mind, I'm not even talking about your intuition, your mind, when it repeats itself so much, it's telling you, this is the place that I want you to come and try to solve something about it. What we do is, no, I don't want to think of it again. I don't want to think of it again. I don't want to think of it. Because thinking of it from an outsider perspective makes us feel frustrated, or makes us feel mad about that person, or makes us feel mad about the circumstance. But bear with me, here is something really important. If we looked at our mind just giving us a sign that, it's pointing at it. It's a guide. It's telling us, this is it. This is what's bothering you. Yes, because it might be touching your ego, but we want to dig deeper, right? So in that example that I gave you, the question would be, okay, how does this phrase make me feel? Does it make me feel that I'm taking a risk? Does it make me feel that I didn't do what I wanted to do? Does it make me feel guilty? Does it make me feel resentment? What does it make me feel? And if you don't get an answer right away, my suggestion is that just keep asking, and make sure you are allowing the containers, meaning the empty spaciousness in your life, for all of those all of those thoughts to come through, because the questions are going to be important. The questions are going to be important for you. Hold on, I'm here in the live chat on YouTube too, and so I'm looking here. So here's the thing. Let's say that that specific example, keep going with that example. Let's say that in that example, the answer is, it makes me doubt that I did the right thing. What would be the worst thing to discover? What would be the worst thing about discovering that was a good job for you and you did a bad thing? And then you keep going down that route. What would be the worst thing about that? Let's say the answer is that I lost an opportunity. Okay, what would be the worst thing about that? That I won't find another good opportunity as that one. Okay, what would be the worst thing about that? Well, that my happiness then will depend on that opportunity. That would be really bad. Okay, what would be the worst thing about that? Keep digging. What would be the worst thing about that? And then the other question that you want to ask is this true, right? Is this really true? No, it's not true. What is it that's making me, what is it that needs to be resolved here? What is it that I need to integrate here? And what is it that I need to integrate here? What it's telling me is that there is a part of me that I'm not liking about myself, and that I have a bad view of, and so therefore I'm rejecting it. In this example, it could be something like, well, there's a part of me that doesn't trust that I can handle that job. That could be a shadow of me, right? There's an irresponsible part of me. There's a part of me that never really proven that I could do that job. Well, if that's the case, what I want to do is integrate that part of me. How do I integrate it, Daddy? Well, I integrate it by first welcoming and accepting it, because remember, we cannot change anything about us that we don't accept and look at first, right? So how is this connected to my parents? Okay, where in my parents' life, and again, this is not about, very important part here, parenthesis, it's like, this is not about talking to our parents, this is not about them having to tell us the story, This is not about, I don't remember anything. I have to know the story. My parent passed away. I was never able to ask them. This is not about any of that. Any of that. Okay, you don't need to remember, you don't need to ask the story, and that could probably add, of course, a lot of good things to this sort of research and looking within. But you don't have to. Really, you don't have to. Ideally, you will already connect it because your body is keeping the score. Your body does remember. Your body does remember because your body has all the information it needs to remember. And so you would know when you're working with your body that this is a memory that's being healed. And you would know by different symptoms that are happening. But there's no need to match it at a physical level unless you really want to. And there are other things that you are going to know that are just going to give you an aha moment. For example, let's say, keeping up with that example, let's say that what I'm saying is, let's say that what I'm saying is that, yeah, I have a part of me that it's doubting that it can do that job. Okay. Then you can ask yourself, right, where in my parents' lives did they feel they were doubting parts of themselves in regards to their career, in regards to body remembers, or you remember, or you have seen that it's related to that, right? Because it's all about emotion, like, oh, wait. Okay, I think it stopped a little bit. It has nothing to do with how the jobs are looking alike or not. It's all about the emotion that you felt and the emotion that your parents felt. And once you grasp on that, that can give you a whole line of connection, and it can make you feel, first of all, it shifts everything, how you see it, because then you see that job as an opportunity. Then you see the situation of you quitting the job as an opportunity. Then you see your parents as teachers and as a lineage, as like sort of the role, the function, the guidance, and the map for your life, because you understand that one of your deepest challenges that you said unconsciously, of course, yes to when you said yes to this lifetime was to say yes to that experience of learning how to believe in yourself again regarding your career, for example. And so you understand that your parents gave you that gift as an opportunity, and that we all have it, right? We all have a wound. We all have a unresolved trauma. We all have a disconnection that our parents give us unconsciously as opportunities that are going to set forward the map from which we are going to have the edges of evolution in our lives. We all have it. And it's actually something to be thankful and grateful about. I know this is very paradoxical, because how are we going to be thankful about something that feels so yucky, so frustrating? But it's when we understand that there's a need of awareness here. There's a need of level of consciousness here. Because when we are in a particular level of consciousness, we understand that the circumstances are not what I'm going to use to base my actions on. Meaning my circumstances are not telling me about how I'm living my life or how good or not I'm living my life. It's not telling me about who I am at all, right? So I, however, inwardly and intrinsically know that life and the universe and my parents and my situation and the divine order and my journey and my path are perfectly the way they are. They are in divine order, and they are designed for me, always designed for me. So when I understand this truth, no matter what, the circumstances are not what's going to tell me that, right? I'm not basing my happiness or my joy or the decisions I'm making based on the circumstances. I am here in the circumstances. I'm not suppressing the circumstances or negating the circumstances. I am looking at them because we live in a duality reality, but they're not what's going to decide for me, right? I'm going to decide based on that inner map, and that inner map inevitably has the impulse of all of those childhood unprocessed emotions that most likely 99% of the time were also unprocessed for my parents, were also unprocessed from another lineage in my lifetime. And that's how it's all connected. So why is this connection so important? Because when I am faced in my reality with a challenge, I can connect this challenge to something that's unresolved within me, because that's what this challenge is trying to show me, just like my mind is trying to redirect me again to this, worry about this, think about this again, worry about it, think about it, worry about it. But if there is another conscious level in my brain that it's a witness, that witness can look at that worry and say, you're not me, right? It's not your thought that is you. Your thought is just giving you a guidance. Hey, there is something here that it's broken, that it's time to take care of. And the way I'm telling you that, it's by making you think over and over again. But you have, by being a witness, better control over that primal thought that just wants to grab all your attention to focus there. Because then you can give container and space to that thought and dig deeper, like I just told you, and connect it back to an unresolved wound. And then from that space, have a conscious decision. Oh my God, how different is that from acting in autopilot and not knowing what's happening and just reacting. Well, it's a huge difference. And the biggest difference of it all is that when we live in that autopilot mode, when we live in that sleepwalking mode, we are just surviving. We're not really living. We're not really thriving. We're not flourishing. We're not creating a life. We're living by default. We're not designing a life, right? Chances are is that if we're there, we can use all these tools. This is just one more tool. Wow, I am always repeating the story of my parents until I wake up and I look back there and integrate it. Yeah, and integrate it. And when I integrate that story with my parents, then what happens? I can heal it for them too, right? I can heal it for the people that are coming forward too. Even if I'm not going to have kids, right? It doesn't matter, because my presence already has a lot of information that can affect another person. Why? Because it's all based on the same magnetic field. So we are picking up from just one pile of energy, from each other's piles of energy. So this is, what we refer to when we say we're all one. So I wanted to share this case with you, right? There's a case that's really interesting about how this could be an important session on how this can be an important, powerful tool. I had a client, right, that was talking about feeling that they had a long relationship, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now they were feeling that they were like not treated the way they needed to be treated, disrespected, and not cheated 100%, but their reaction, their feeling. This is why it's so important but what you feel. What you feel is what's going to connect the dots. It's not about what happens. It's about what you feel. It's not about what happens. It's about what you feel. Again, it's not about what happens. It's also about what you do with what happens, right? And so what he felt is that he felt cheated, unrespected, and not given the priority, right? So that is like a little hint that shows up. How does it show up? Well, because it's bothering him enough to bring it up to a session, right? Number two, because he can't stop thinking about it. It's all day, all night, feeling frustrated, feeling ashamed, feeling so much resentment, so much guilt. That's how it shows up. So those are the keys. Those are the clues that we understand, there's something here to be healed. There's something here to be looked at. Then these two moments, and it shows up. What do? I bring them the mirror. Okay. Where in your life, first, where in your life are you disrespecting yourself? Well, by acting against what I say. So I say something, right? I say that this person mistreated me and that this person doesn't deserve this or that. And yet I go and call this person and talk to them, and I'll be in front of them as if I don't feel the other things. In that moment, because I'm not acting in integrity and in congruency, I'm not respecting myself. This was his answer. And then the other question is back into your generational trauma, right? Where in your life? And let the body answer. Remember, you don't need to remember anything that your parents did. You don't need to ask them. If you want to ask them, that's great, but you don't need any remembrance. If you do want to go back there, there's so many methods that you can access that information through constellation, through hypnosis, through many ways. But truly, you don't need to. We don't really care about what truly happened. Again, what we care about is what in me is connected to how they felt, because it's an unresolved feeling that's going to transfer to me through DNA. And so the other question about that is, okay, where in your parents' life did they feel disrespected or cheated, right? Or where in your parents' life, regarding your parents' life, did you feel disrespected or cheated, okay, regarding your relationship with them? And that's how you start connecting the dots and digging through. How? Because when you find that space, right, let's say in his case, we looked at in back relationships. So the relationship before the one that he was having right now was a relationship that has nothing to do, he didn't get cheated or anything like that, but he did feel the same thing. He feel unrespected. He feel not cheated, but like betrayed. He feel betrayed. It was something about a family business, so he feel betrayed in a whole nother different environment, but there was a feeling of betrayal. And when there is betrayal, there is a lot of lies. And when there are lies can give you the hint of where this trail can connect back to your lineage, okay? Because you can also ask when you look back, where in my family lineage are there hidden lies? Are there hidden secrets? Are there things that were never told? Because lies always connect to betrayal. And it doesn't mean that the betrayal had to have happened. What it means is that you might feel betrayed. In this case that I'm talking about, he felt betrayed. Even though the betrayal, we don't know if it actually still happens or not. Okay, because it's what you, so what gives us a clue of how the brain and this consciousness program is your feeling. Okay, the other day somebody was asking me, well, but how do you know, like, why is it that a parent, parents can have 3 kids and the 3 of them feel different things? One of them might feel abandoned, the other them might never felt abandoned, and the other other might feel rejected and, or, do other things. And it's because it's your little brain that takes on that decision. When you are 2 years and younger, you don't have a cognitive way. So it's your brain is just protecting itself with all the, manners that it can, while only having feelings to protect himself. And so also, your parents are not the same when they have the first baby that when they have the second baby that when they had you. They're completely different persons. And I'm not only talking about in terms of what we all understand, but also at a cellular level, there are completely different persons. They're like completely different persons. And also their DNA information is rearranged in a whole completely different way. So what gets transferred to you, it's completely different. So the emotions that they haven't, something that could have happened is like when they had their first baby, they might have had a specific particular hardship or situation that they couldn't process and go through. And then 10 years later, they were able to process that emotionally through help or through other things. And so when they had you, they didn't necessarily have the same type of hardship or challenge. They had a completely different thing going on. And a lot of the times you would never know. And a lot of times your parents also would never know because they might not even remember, because it's so subtle. That's why what really happens doesn't matter. What matters is how you felt about it and discovering how this affects everything that is happening in your life right now. And how naturally, biologically, and now we know through epigenetics that you are undoubtedly attracting the same not the same circumstances, but the circumstances that are going to boil up the same emotions that weren't able to process by your parents. Yeah? So I'm going to repeat that again. Undoubtedly and scientifically already proven that in your lifespan, you will keep bringing about circumstances that can boil up the same emotions that your parents weren't able to process, because it's like your turn now. And so the good news is that we can process them, we can integrate them, and we understand how to do that much better than ever before. Okay, think about this. Like, we didn't know that our brain could actually change before 2010. This is crazy. I think this is really crazy. I really think this is crazy. We were forcing, and this is why this, parenting idea of, with fear, you force people to change through fear. If you don't do this, through fear and through pain, right? If you don't do this, what do you prefer? Do you prefer this painful situation, or you prefer to change your behavior? And that's how we used to understand behavioral change was done. So now we know that the brain has other capabilities, and it's much easier and much less casting of secondary effects to do it within integration. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful talk. I hope that is uplifting. I know it's you can take it as a bad news, but it truly isn't bad news. It's a good opportunity. And the way I see it is like, wow, there is so much web of life under everything that we experience. And it's an opportunity of growth. So see it with that opportunity of growth, and see yourself as a like leaf in a tree, right? Where that tree truly is your lineage. It's where you come from. And there's a lot of information that can that can say a lot about your life within that. So looking back there in order to keep growing forward, it's so important. It's so important. And it's going to be a process that instead of spending 10 more years to realize something and 3 more relationships or 3 more jobs, you can realize it right now. just by paying attention to the triggers, by paying attention where your mind wants to focus on. I hope this was helpful. I am so grateful for you. And remember, I'm here on Instagram, DariLuna _ TikTok, I am DariLuna. I have Luna membership, which for $25, you can come in and take our masterclass every month. We can do Telegram, get-togethers, and it's a community where we do energy circles every month as well. So if you are interested in like working through those traumas, working through, that mental health, like really staying up to date and awakened and not having this life where you're just completely asleep or in autopilot or just sleepwalking through crisis and through conflicts in your life, we welcome you to Luna membership anytime you want. There's also Conscious Woman Roadmap, which happens twice a year, and it's my 90-day intensive coaching program, which I really recommend. Doors open in September. So get into my newsletter, get into the waiting list, and I hope to see you here next Monday at 10 a.m. Beneath the Surface. And you can see my videos on Mondays and Thursdays. Take care.